Hello, gorgeous, and welcome to the Midlife Realignment. I'm your host, Esther Blum, and I'm here to disrupt the narrative on perimenopause and menopause with humor, nutrition, hormones, and fierce self-advocacy. Together, we'll rewrite your story and the rules because there's a light at the end of the vaginal tunnel. Let's go. Today on the Midlife Realignment podcast, we have the team behind the Erin's Law documentary. Maureen Isern, producer and director of the film, former journalist and TV editor/producer before starting her own production company, Moped Productions, which has developed impact-driven documentaries, digital content, and online campaigns since 2007. She also co-founded the mental health-focused production company, The Shift Productions, which is behind theshift.com. Her partner, Adam Schomer, is a producer of Erin's Law documentary and has been making documentary films and series for the last 15 years, with a deep focus on inner empowerment, courageous journeys, and stories of personal power. Titles include the Netflix hit Heal, which is now on Prime, the award-winning Highest Pass, and the doc-series Selling Superman, Road to Dharma, and Wheels of Awakening. Welcome to the filmmakers of Erin's Law documentary. I think if you know anybody who has been the victim of sexual abuse, whether it's yourself, a friend, or family member, please be sure to share this episode with them. It will be a game changer for all of you. Mo and Adam, thank you for taking time out to be here today. I'm just absolutely thrilled to have you.
Thanks for having us. This is really special.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Happy to be here.
So talk to me, can you explain to everyone what exactly is Erin's Law and what is Erin's Law documentary even about?
Sure, I can give that a shot. Erin's Law is essentially a law that has passed in 38 states. Erin Moran is behind it. She's an advocate for child body safety. And in her law, she asks that states mandate schools to teach body safety to kids 1 hour a year in grades K through 12 with age-appropriate curriculum. And Erin's Law documentary is following her journey to try to pass it in the last 12 states and really tell the story of how she became who she is, what she's doing about the state of, child abuse as far as, advocacy, awareness, education, and really intervening in letting abuse continue without kids being able to speak up for themselves. So she's empowered so many kids and so many families to come forward. And that's what the film is going to be about. And of course, a bit beyond that, the larger impact of child abuse and what enables it to continue.
Well, and not just physical abuse, but sexual abuse is really at the brunt of this because I've heard 1 in 3 to 1 in 4 girls are sexually abused under the age of 18, and 1 in 6 boys are sexually abused under the age of 18. So what was Erin's journey and that led to this law being created in the first place?
Her journey began with being a kindergartner who wanted to have a sleepover with her next door neighbor and best friend. And so very normal, awesome family who supported and loved her. And, she had sisters and played in the backyard and rode bikes and did lemonade stands, goes to her first sleepover and wakes up in the middle of the night to the friend's live-in uncle abusing her and telling her to keep it a secret and that he would, hurt her family if she told anybody. And so she went home the next day, didn't say a word, and then returned to the house under that threat of, you also need to come back and while you're not saying anything. And so she ended up being abused from the ages of 6 to 8 by this man and raped by her 7th birthday, and was able to escape that abuse through her family moving away, at which point she got, as she says, closer to her next abuser, which was a family member, a cousin, who then started abusing her in her kind of preteen years. And eventually she realized that her sister was also being abused, and at that point spoke up and went through quite a difficult journey of recovery, as you could imagine, in high school and college, having just sort of the challenges of trying to like move forward with your life while dealing with this thing that you know is weighing on you and having large widespread impact. And eventually she turned to her diary, and in her diary saw where she had written as a child that she never expected this to happen by a family member. They don't teach you this in school. And at that point, she says, in her words, God spoke to her and told her her mission was to make sure kids got educated in school. And that's what's driven her whole journey, is that sort of that voice telling her, this is your lifelong mission. So now she's a 40-year-old woman, mother of 4, married outside of Chicago, and has spent the last 15 years passing this law. And she's inspiration isn't the word.
Unstoppable feels like the word for her.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing that I learned is, and I've seen it, I have friends, family members, I myself have experienced abuse too, from the ages of 6 to 8. And the thing is that most people are told, most victims are told, I will kill you or your family if you tell anybody. Or, I'm blanking on the other things they're told. But yeah, it's like, oh, it's our secret. It's our secret. This is between us. And a child doesn't have the capacity to know, or they simply don't know. They think this is how people show love. And so what I loved, even in the glimpse from your trailer, was that it seems like if she can get a child to, well, A, know what is and isn't okay, but B, tell an adult within the first 24 hours of it happening, that is life-changing. And in your trailer, there's also the story of the male principal who had abused how many boys?
It was in the mid-20s. It was like 26
Yeah.
boys took the stand by the time he was being prosecuted.
Yeah. And he's now behind bars. And this is because of Erin's law.
Absolutely a direct result of that story, of that lesson being taught, and kids speaking up the very same day. And in our sizzle, the film hasn't been made yet. We've started filming. So that sizzle is built from a lot of archive footage to help bring attention to the film being made. And we interviewed when we made it a mother whose son had been in that pool of boys, in that group of boys. And she spoke to us anonymously. We changed her voice. And she said, that her son could have been saved if this law had been passed when it was first prevented, because of the age that he was when he went through it. It was easily preventable for many of these boys. And in the case of another, young 18-year-old who speaks to us in the sizzle and sits next to her mother while she talks to us, she reported within 24 hours of being abused. And it's extraordinary, the sort of diminishing possibility of speaking up the more times an incident happens, because of that internalized fear. And to add to some of those threats, some of them are, no one will believe you, it's your fault, they'll think it's your fault, they'll think you caused it. And so the victim starts to become self-shaming, self-blaming, as I'm sure you can relate. I too went through abuse in middle school, and so I am very familiar with that sort of thwarted state of mind, kind of like a form of brainwash that has you feel like you are completely alone in this. And what Erin's doing is taking down that wall, like revealing the wizard, saying, this is all made up. These are in many cases empty threats. These abusers are extremely scared of being found out. And of course, there are cases where they're extremely dangerous people, and these kids don't know the difference. But where they can speak up to someone and get help and be believed, it's absolutely life-changing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because what follows is a lifetime of shame, of suicidal thoughts, of the physiological impact of abuse, of trauma, is that it imprints itself on our DNA, which enables autoimmune conditions to come up, gut issues, chronic cortisol issues because our bodies then stay in that fight or flight state, even though we're not, you and I and Adam are not in a state of imminent danger right now. We're recording a podcast. But if you don't heal that trauma and get the help and support and release and heal the shame, your body makes itself sick to protect itself. And it's funny, I was giving a talk last week in New York at a global financial firm, and a woman said, "What can I do to heal my autoimmune system?" And the first thing that came out of my mouth before I could think was, heal any trauma that is not resolved. If you've had sexual abuse, if you've had physical abuse, if you've had emotional abuse, heal that, because that, I mean, and to me, that's the great, obviously fix your gut, work on your cortisol, but up here, your head and your heart, you know, that inner child needs so much healing. And I'm going to get slightly off topic, Mo, but how did you really work on or are working on healing from your own trauma and abuse?
Yeah, and you know, Adam is such a great voice in this too, even though he hasn't had this experience particularly. He's told a lot of story about that power of the mind and the body to heal, and the connection between thought and, you know, change in your nervous system, through, you know, and I'll let you speak to that, Adam. On my end, I first went to therapy as a teenager, resisted that, did not want medication. I was offered Prozac and I did not want to take it for whatever reason. I thought, I just want to deal with what is causing me to feel however I feel, because I knew that I'd gone through this. And for all intents and purposes, you know, really had like an active teenage, high school and college life, and looked productive and had success and was doing well and enjoying, had friends. And then in my early 20s went back to therapy because I was having, you know, some flashbacks and things that came up for me. And in that time did some the eye therapy, I'm blanking on the EMDR, where you sort of follow and you create this mental space that you can go to. And I think that had more of an effect on me than I realized at the time, to create that sort of mental safe space to go to when things felt triggering. But I didn't necessarily have the technique or the ability to go to it. It was just sort of in my subconscious, but I didn't know how to use it. And went 10 years with very little, paid attention to it from a healing standpoint, outside of, I think maybe what was one of the largest impacts was that I went and I had a conversation with the person who abused me 12 years later. And I sat with them and I did get acknowledgement and I did get an apology and I did get a chance to face the reality that it happened, and not feel like somehow I had made it more than it was, but really get the sense that it impacted. It really, like, the impact was sincere. And I then went back thinking I could continue living my life. And about 10 years later, really had what felt like my life kind of fall out from under me, in the sense that suddenly I kind of didn't recognize myself, and I didn't recognize how I had gotten into what looked like, again, a very successful life, but feeling very empty inside and very alone. And so I went back into therapy, and at that point recognized that I had been spending a lot of time making everyone else feel okay about what I went through, but I hadn't gotten a chance to really get fully acknowledged for myself. And so I think, as you said, that inner child, you know, was reaching out to me. And I ended up exploring a lot of different methodologies I used. And it wasn't in this order, but I did everything from discovering Alan Watts and Rumi, and you know, just the ability to hear from other people, Stuart Wilde, you know, just different people's way of framing things that was outside of like the Catholic religion I was raised in. And so suddenly I had this insight into more personal power and perspective and reframing. And the way life is much bigger than just our own personal experience. And then I did different courses, sort of transformational leadership training with other people, acknowledging, where I felt stuck in my life and where I wanted to take action and kind of transcend the way things are, quote unquote, as a fixed state, and really get that. And then, I met Adam in 2017, and at that point learned about Heal as a film, which he was producing, and my mind was really blown open to see someone out there acknowledging, Kelly Gora as the director, taking this journey to tell the story of how people can heal, and the power of the mind. And, I could go on, I could list a dozen: plant medicine, Reiki, tapping, um, meditation. Adam leads breath work and meditation and yoga, and just all these different inputs have kind of, I don't know, like reorganized my my cells in some way to say, yes, I can still get triggered and I can still be in a dark moment, but the time that it takes me to come back and recover, and the cost, that I pay now, the price that I pay now, is, I think, smaller than it would have been 15 years ago, where I didn't have some of those tools. So that's what enables me to tell Erin's story and even take on telling her story. Adam knows, like, it took me, 6 months after meeting her to, I was immediately a yes, because she's a hero that I had known about for a lot longer, since she had it at 28 states. And I had written her into things. I knew who she was, and she was a hero of mine. And yet I still was afraid to take on telling her story, because I knew it would mean I had to acknowledge my own as a storyteller. And now I can do that with a lot more, reassurance that it's just the way things are. I'm not doing anything wrong by talking about it. And that's the old fear that has me think that I could be, in danger talking about it, or, doing something wrong by talking about it. And when I saw that, I saw, oh, that's the childhood fear and the threat still living in me as a 40-something-year-old. And that's just not true. How would I explain this to my own child if she was afraid of something like that? Like, oh, that's a ghost. That's an old voice. So here we are. And I'm so grateful to Adam. He's the one who initially got the message about the opportunity to tell her story and forward it to me. And, he recognized there was a reason to go forward with it. And so he's been taking on, the journey of raising the money, executive producing and enabling it to happen. So.
And I want to highlight what Mo was saying there. Like, the journey continues. Like, for her, as a filmmaker, for us all, when we make films about crusades like Erin's is, and Erin herself as a character, as a human being, as a hero, is still in a hero's journey. She's processing. She's still dealing with the demons. That's part of us being on Earth, and the stories I've had the pleasure of telling for 15 years always highlight that. Always highlight that we're on a pilgrimage, that we're going to learn. And I always tell the crews that I work with, like, you're on a pilgrimage too, like, you're going to learn. So, Mo's in it, I'm in it. People I talk to now and tell about the film, good friends of mine will, that are my age, in our, Gen X, whatever age the Gen X is, but I'm 50, but come forward and like, oh yeah, it happened to me, it happened to me, it happened to me. So many of my friends. So it's really out there, and I think it's never too late, obviously, to speak up about it and do the healing, because we're continually healing in life. And so I just want to highlight that Erin's on a journey still of healing. Maureen's going to be healing, and healing meaning not that we're sick, meaning that we're growing. That we're all expanding, that we're evolving. So, and myself likewise. And I just shot a film in India, and post-production is its own little pilgrimage of, watching it again and experiencing it again, and going through things. So, my eyes, I could just say, have been incredibly opened to this topic, and how important it is, how many people have gone through it, and why helping children have a voice is so important. And likewise, adults in the after years still find their voice again, just at any point. And, we see it in our own societies and our fights for freedom and throughout the years. And We don't want anyone to take our freedoms and take our voice away, and through threat. So it's everywhere in our lives. So it's, I think, a story that'll really resonate, even if someone hasn't been through sexual abuse themselves. It is that greater idea of giving into threat, of how do we step out, how do we enable each other to give each other voices, and then stand up and fight for those that don't.
So, I love all of this, and Adam, I totally want to unpack heal in a couple minutes. But Mo, thank you for even just sharing. Like, your journey is incredible, and I love that you're highlighting that there are so many different healing modalities. There's no one modality that works for everybody. Everybody needs to find their own path, but the beauty is there are so many different modalities. There is EMDR, there is tapping, there is plant medicine, there's psychotherapy, there's antidepressants when needed, anti-anxiety. Like, there's so many great tools, and there's no shame around anyone. They're all options for us that we should each take time exploring. And I am curious for you, Mo, did you notice any physical changes in your body and your nervous system after you did confront the person who abused you?
Um, I didn't have the self-awareness to notice that. I have it now where like right now I can check in and I'm like clenching my fists and my shoulders are up and I'm kind of like trembling like I'm cold. And it's not because I'm even afraid. It's sort of like my body just kind of goes into that mode. And so, but the difference is that my stomach, I can still breathe. My stomach's not tight. The way that I was in my, as I look back, is I was locked up and I was tense. And I made a joke in my mid 30s that I had a six-pack stomach because of anxiety. It's like the best workout you could get. And it was sad, but it was like funny because it was true. Um, and you know, to your point, there's a lot of different modalities. Some of them are good at different times. You know, I did have medication at some point in my 30s. You know, you do these things to work through. But at the time that I went and confronted him, what I remember specifically was that I had a cardigan on and I sat like this, like with my arms clenched and like everything, my knees tight. Um, and I just wasn't comfortable in my body. I don't think I was comfortable in my body until, you know, 5 years ago, in part because I started to recognize I was still carrying that tension and it was costing me the, like where I was underweight a couple years ago because I just didn't have an appetite. I constantly was so tense that my stomach couldn't relax enough to eat. You know, I didn't have, and I love food. I have a great appetite, a good appetite for life, a good appetite for food. And but I was in this state of, staying so busy and so quote productive that, it didn't enable me to spend time thinking about these things. And, and then I found like, wow, my body is really paying a price. I had body pain. Um, so I think that I recognize now there's a change. And so it didn't come as much from the specific confrontation as much as from looking back at 20 plus, you know, going up 30 years of still paying a price. And I think one of the things that is a kind of a sad outcome of the tragedy of abuse is when it stays with us to a level that we think we think that that's all there is. We think that because there was abuse and there is an impact, that that is the state of our condition, our human condition through the rest of our lives. And I think that there's truth to there's always an impact. There's an impact that will always be with you in some way or another. And I think Erin and many people are an example that you can enjoy your life. You can have the things that you want. She has the marriage and the kids and the house and loves her life, you know, and is very clear on that for herself. And she sees where the journey that she went through has a purpose and she's using that, you know, to make a difference. And she wouldn't wish this on anybody, what she went through, but she's making of it something that, you know, can be of service. And I think for myself, I can say the same. Like, I look around at my life and I'm like, I love my life. I enjoy my life. I can experience joy. I have love. I have support. I have friendship. I have the ability to show where I'm at with people, be sincere. And that is not, that's not something that I've had to fully give up. You know, that's something that I fought for through healing. And I would encourage anybody who's dealing with feeling stuck to just take like one action to just get curious and consider like what's something, you know, that I feel like I'm missing out on that I would like to regain, you know, or that I haven't felt like I've had yet, and consider that it's possible, you know, for what it's worth to just share that.
Yes, and just working on regulating your nervous system and just having peace on the day to day is really the greatest flex. That's the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, is when there's peace in our bodies and our minds and our hearts, and we forgive ourselves. We love on that inner child. We understand it wasn't our fault. We, you know, when we heal, it just, the work is so deep and painful, but also incredibly beautiful because, yes, you can have an incredibly full life. You can. And the beauty is, you know, I always say to my son, you have the childhood you have because I had the childhood I have.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know my full story, but it doesn't matter because we're, you know, when we're able to take our journeys and turn it into something so powerful that can benefit other humans. I mean, that's why you both do the incredible work you do, is to make something beautiful and save another soul, and save them from suicide, save them from heartache and grief, and just get them to live fully, joyfully. That's why, you know, your work is so powerful. And Adam, your movie Heal, there isn't a week that goes by where I don't talk about it. I don't refer people to watch it. I mean, that too is, can you talk a little bit about this documentary? It's still on Netflix, correct?
It's on Prime.
It's on Prime.
It's on
Thank
Prime.
you. Can you talk about that? Because I'm still obsessed with it to this day. And I think it's such a powerful film.
What would you like to know? I mean, it was wonderful to produce it and continue. Kelly Gores, you know, Kelly Noonan Gores directed it and brought me in to produce it. And again, total journey. And then we continued afterwards to do summits. And she has a book and the podcast. And the beautiful thing about Heal that I'll just say is that people keep referring to it. They keep going back and watching it. It's a good, real baseline of, oh yeah, just possibility. What's possible, way beyond what we're told growing up of how to heal, that there's other possibilities. It's that's what I really like about it. It's not dogmatic. It's just getting in there for anyone, whatever level of spirituality you've been in or healing. It gives that window that says, hey, let's start considering some other things and other ways to look at your disease or healing or what caused it and what can heal it. That's what I love about it. It opens the door, and it becomes a reference for a lot of people. Even universities use it as well.
Well, and of all the healing modalities, what resonates with me about it is, of all the healing modalities, Eastern medicine, Western medicine, Ayurvedic, traditional Chinese medicine, it all comes back to the mind. It all starts with our thoughts, our minds, and our minds have the greatest power. And I love that interview with Joe Dispenza when he's talking about that bike accident he had where he fractured his back, his vertebrae, and was told he would never walk again, and how he spent first a few minutes, then, a few hours, then up to 6 hours a day meditating, envisioning healing his vertebrae one cell at a time, and how he put himself back together and is totally fine and walks and is active. And it just, and I know from a hormonal perspective, I always teach my women, stress drives hormones from the top down. So, I'm like, before you take a bazillion supplements and expect hormones out to do all the heavy lifting, they're a piece in the puzzle but you've got to, get your nervous system regulated. And trust that your body has the innate capability to heal itself when given the right tools to do so. But if you don't access some piece of stress management or connecting to your body, it makes it far more difficult to get the results that you can have. I mean, and there's stories in your documentary too about the woman who, had went into the hospital with the lemon-sized tumors in her body and died and met her father in heaven. And he said, "Do you want to be here?" She said, "No, not really." And he put her back in her own body, and she left the hospital 4 months later, completely cancer-free. I mean,
Yeah, Anita Morjani. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean
incredible.
that speaks to the idea of, I mean, you said power of the mind, but also, mind, spirit, body, right? Like the natives would say that there's three things we need to access. We've been cut off a lot from spirit, so yeah, the power of the mind and what the mind can do when interacting with the field, spirit, consciousness, and knowing also that there's, like with Anita's case, there's an unknown, there's a spirit, there's something we're less in contact with sometimes, depending on our upbringing and our practices, that also has a possibility to heal in miraculous ways that are beyond the mind, right? Beyond like, so someone's like, "Hey, Joe Dispenza spends 6 hours a day. I can't do that." There are, that's not the only way. And the possibility of miraculous or just the unknown or just even having a practice like you were saying, stabilizing the nervous system, to me is also just getting in touch with spirit, because spirit is at ease always. The field is at ease. That's the reality of nature, is it's at ease. It's not stressed. So when we come in contact with consciousness, our own consciousness, it's gonna level the mind a bit and body. So I think all three very important. We touch on that and heal. I think it's there, again, without being preachy. That's we try not to preach and have story. Same with Erin's law, right? Like to have story, to be able to follow someone's courage and the obstacles without preaching, do this, do that, or everyone's got it figured out. It's just to show that light and to also have solutions. That's really important in these films. Is there are solutions. We're not. It's not trauma drama, right? We it's a problem. We need to be aware of it, but let's embed a solution and embed a story of heroism in a film. Heel does that. A lot of my other films do it, and Aaron's Law is a huge example of that. That's why we were drawn to the film. That's why I was drawn to the film also, because there's a personal power story there of a woman taking on the political system, basically. Unbelievable, unbelievable. Alone, basically. Yeah.
Are you slogging your way through perimenopause? Do you feel like the dead lady in the bathtub in The Shining? I'm Esther Blum, integrative dietitian, best-selling author, TEDx speaker, and menopause survivor. With 30 years of helping women make menopause their bitch, I've created an elite program to help you reclaim midlife and get your life back. Get personalized hormone tests, gut healing protocols, custom supplements, and coaching with me. Reset your sleep, banish bloating, crush workouts, and reignite that sexy spark, all in a badass community of women like you. Visit estherblum.com to learn more. Well, yeah, and again, the beauty of the work is with Heal is it really applies to victims of sexual abuse too, is that the greatest struggle is, I think, for sexual abuse victims is that they think they're alone. They don't realize how many other people are going through it alongside them. I had close friends growing up that were abused for 10 years by family members. I had no idea. They didn't even tell me until their 20s. And I was sobbing. I was like, oh my God. And we think we're alone in this, and we're not. And it's the same with chronic illness too. A lot of people have invisible disabilities, right? Including sexual abuse, where you present fine on the outside, like Mo, people looked at you and were like, oh, she's healthy, she's happy, she's fine. But on the inside, there was a daily battle going on. Or again, people get autoimmune conditions or Ehlers-Danlos, all of these chronic health struggles, that there's always an element of trauma too that connects us.
Yeah, I think one of the common things that when people of any trauma have the flashback moment, one of the techniques is to just put yourself back in this room, right? And to not just put yourself back as if it's simple, but to do what it takes to bring yourself back to this moment, whether it's somebody telling you, whether it's even something like washing your hands and having the water kind of put you back in your body here. There's horse riding, like equine therapy for sexual trauma victims. Just anything that can really make you extremely present. And one of the things that I started to understand more was how there was a part of my mind that was trained to spend time going back, right? Like every year that I age, I'm getting more practice, call it more reps on thinking back at this incident. And I started to notice that every time I did that, there was a cost to my body. There's a cost emotionally. There's a cost on my relationships if I'm now agitated and reactive and upset. There's a distancing, from joy, from engaging with people. And I noticed that like my nervous system was tuned in for that. Like that felt normal. It felt more normal than peace, than just, being in the moment and really taking in that everything was okay. And so it was kind of untangling my mind from that level of at risk. I will say that I will use the word satisfaction, right? Of feeding that like nervous system need, kind of like a sugar spike, like, oh, I need that piece of candy. And so it took acknowledging that in the moment that I start to go there, there's another choice. There's a million other choices. And if I can make the choice, that I practice trying that. And it wasn't always successful. And what that looked like at times was, I'd have a memory and I'd find myself in the bathroom crying. And then I'd look at myself and it'd be, look at how 30 years later, this place that you're standing in that's nowhere near that situation, you're in this state as if that was here, that moment was here. And I just thought, God, it enraged me. It almost made me more upset, anger and rage at the injustice, right? And then it's like, and so what? So what? Like, so it's, yes, it was unjust. And now what? That's all I could do was like, now what, right? You can't go back and change it. So now what? What's the next step? And the next step is let me wipe my face up and try to be here now again. And I got a little bit tired of myself. I got a little bit frustrated, impatient, and in some way, maybe started to like, it's sort of a radical responsibility of go like, I'm the only one that can do something now about my condition. I can do the things out in the world, like tell stories that can help people, raise my daughter with a lot more education and self-awareness and ability to tell me anything. Speak openly to my partner about where I'm at if something's bothering me, so that it doesn't feel like this thing that is hard to identify, and why am I in a certain mood, but I can't go back and change it. And so for me, that's sort of in the mindset of where your mind is a player. I'm like, that's the game I want to play, is recognizing the game for one, and then deciding like, well, which team am I going to play for? The past or the future or the present, and kind of like make that call where I could. And doesn't always look, it's not graceful all the time, but it's generous. I think Adam's a really generous partner, and I'm generous with myself. And I think we could all bring a lot more generosity to ourselves in just acknowledging, we're on a journey and our soul has been given some kind of assignment, as I take it. And so, what's next? What are we going to do about it?
Yeah. Well, and I think too, for people when they go through trauma at such a young age, that becomes the default of fight or flight becomes the baseline of the operating system. That's how we operate in fight or flight, always checking our safety, always on edge, on high alert. And the work you're doing so beautifully, and Adam, the work you are doing so beautifully helps people. You're helping yourself, Mo, and you broke the cycle with your daughter, which is the most powerful thing, but also you're helping people normalize this and rebuild their operating systems. You're rebuilding your own operating systems. That's where I have personally found plant medicine to be very useful. Microdosing journeys, that helps give your brain neuroplasticity and help give you a new operating system. But psychotherapy does that. Breath work does that. Anything that drops you back down into your nervous system does that. Adam, I don't know if you want to add to this piece.
I agree. I agree. Meaning breath work. I think breath work, daily practice is the utmost, the utmost, regardless of deep pilgrimages or deep plant medicine, things that wake us up without daily rewiring and wiring into safety. That's my perspective of meditation and breath work on a daily level because we're bombarded with a lot, not only our own stories, but the stories of the world to be able to maintain, like a knowingness of safety, as you said, or a knowingness, a different kind of safety, I would say, of who we really are, of the truth. So yeah, daily practice is of the utmost. Great pilgrimages, great events, great, plant medicine, things that take us way beyond, and then stabilizing daily, rewiring daily.
Yes.
Absolutely.
One of
Hugs.
one of my dear friends just gave me the Sensate. Have you ever heard of this? I have no financial ties. It's a teardrop shaped device that you put on your chest. If you were humming, it would activate the vagus nerve. So the Sensate does it for you and it syncs to an app that plays music and does meditations, and the sensate just gently vibrates off and on with the music. It's like the first time I did it, I felt like I was totally stoned. I was like, whoa, like it just dropped down my daily vibrations that are in my mind running 1,000 miles an hour. So that's an interesting tool too. But yeah, I do love meditation apps. Even I think nothing replaces in person, but apps do a great job at home too. I do a lot of Insight Timer, and yeah, our mind is our greatest tool. I remember, I've talked about this a lot already on the podcast, but when I was really struggling through Lyme and mold, and my doctor said, envision your body as if it's already healed, and this is all behind you. And I would envision myself at the squat rack lifting because I had lost the ability to lift. I had no energy. Like my mitochondria were dead. My cortisol was not even on the graph, on the curve. And so doing that also helped my cells start to reprogram themselves and heal so that 9 months later I was back at the squat rack. But and your body does catch up when you're able to think about possibility and envision your whole future self fully healed, your nervous system regulated, your cells do catch up in
Yes.
that journey, which is incredible.
It is an informational energetic system. So of course, if you communicate with it, it'll communicate back in certain ways too. This is how it works. There's no getting around that. That's what science understands now finally. So.
So, Adam, how do you personally teach meditation and breath work? Because a lot of people believe they are not good at meditating. And I'm like, it's not a contest. Nobody has to be good. But they say, I can't do that. I don't have time. I'm too busy. And how do you teach people to start connecting to their body? Because for most people, that's a foreign idea. Or if they've been horribly abused, they've dissociated from themselves and cannot connect to their bodies.
Sure, sure. Every Monday at 11 a.m., I lead people. So I mean,
Where?
teach it through practice. Oh, on Zoom, it's free. If people go to adam.yoga, they can put their email in, and then I send a free Zoom link. And there's like 100 people that, and I've been doing it for 15 years, and it's just and it's I do I'll say simple but powerful, meaning we do about 10 minutes of breath work, three pranayamas, so 3 minutes each. Again, so it's not too long, it's accessible. I can do something for 3 minutes. Yeah, okay. Pranayama, then another pranayama, and then another. And that really sends a lot of signals. The breath is a way of communicating to your whole system. It's telling every chemical, it's communicating just like words are. It's telling your body you can relax, you can be safe by certain breath. So we use that to our advantage. It's not the solution, it's supporting, right? It's helping us get to a more heightened awareness where, oh, now we can observe the thoughts and then reprogram. So we use English words usually to just remind ourselves of what's already true, remind our whole system, our cells. And so ends up being a 20-minute meditation, so to speak, pranayama and meditation. Now, what I think people realize is like, oh, I have the power. I can shift my breath. I can communicate to my own system. And wow, look, all my cells react really quickly. My state reacts really quickly. And once you're there, it's like you can't go back, meaning now you know you have the power. So for those that maybe have struggled in the past of, oh, I can't be silent, very helpful because we have, things we're doing, 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes, and then words we're using. And of course, there's some time of silence. So it's become a nice community as well, where you see other people. So it's fun. I have like an opening monologue. So, I get that out of my system where I get to make jokes for 5 minutes uh, and then we meditate, eventually. And then there's always time for some questions after. So community, laughter, ease, that's all part of it to even come in is like, oh, let's create a little crack in our patterns. So if that's the opening monologue to do that, fine. And then that makes the pranayama and meditation easier. So, creating cracks, creating some community and practices that are easy, that's the first steps. And then those that are, finding success with it, so to speak, or drawn to it, that's really the key. Always offering things if someone's ready and wants it, but I'm not, you can't chase people, obviously. You can't make someone do it. They have to be ready to do the work and want to expand. Yeah. And then I tell them to watch all my movies, of course.
Of
So,
course. And we need to talk
right?
about Finding Superman, which is
Yeah.
incredible.
Selling Superman.
Selling
Selling Superman.
Superman. Sorry. Oh my goodness.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah. Yeah, Selling Superman has a big mental health aspect. Road to Dharma is motorcycling through the Himalayas. Heal, as you know. So many different ways into the human empowerment. Yeah.
Just gorgeous. Um, okay. So how can people support getting Erin's Law made? Because the reality is we do need to fundraise to get these movies made. These are not these are not backed by Hollywood studios. These are backed by your passion and your pursuit for telling stories honestly, compassionately, and really having tremendous impact on people's lives. So how do
We
you
have at erinslawfilm.com, we have a link to our our donation page so people can actually make a tax deductible donation through our fiscal sponsor. And so if you go to erinslawfilm.com, you can support the film that way on an individual level. And that can be $5, it can be 500, it can be 5,000. We've gotten all of those ranges. We are also, and this is where Adam's really leading the way, building relationships with investors, the people who want to come in at executive level, executive producer level. And yeah, maybe you can speak to that.
Executive producers, right? People that have wealth where they can support uh, and see the return on an impact level, because as we've seen, Aaron's Law, when it's known about, works. And so when you make a film, then more people know about it. And then when more people know about it, there's more pressure on the politicians, more states do it. So the film has impact like that. And of course, we have certain platforms and things that would like this. I can't name names already, but we know that investment wise for investors, it's already really solid, which is hard to come by sometimes in the documentary film world, but we already know it's got both things. So yeah, if someone happens to be listening and they're of that wealth level where, hey, we can be an executive producer on an incredibly impactful film, they can reach out to us, and it's not a difficult thing. These are simple agreements. Yeah.
And they would reach out to you through erinslawfilm.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, our email's there. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Oh my gosh. Thank you. I know this is going to be life-changing for everyone listening, if not for themselves, then for friends or other people they have in their lives who've gone through something like this. So thank you both for just the incredible work you are doing. And can people host screenings down the line also when the movie does come out? Because again, I mean, imagine the impact if this was hosted on college campuses, if this was hosted for schools, but also to the general public. I mean,
Absolutely. We will be really excited to see that happen at a community level, and some of the people that are really interested in supporting the film want to make sure that happens too. And I would encourage people, just from a creative standpoint, to consider taking the trailer, the sizzle that's on our website, and hosting a screening of that 6-minute story, and considering pooling together what people wish to donate through our fiscal sponsor as a result of seeing the trailer alone, because that's something they can do now, and it could make a difference now and really help us continue. We're following Erin as she testifies because we don't want to miss those moments, and we're doing that pre-fundraising, and so these contributions make a really big difference to help that happen.
mm-hmm. And does Erin also have like a social media handle? We'll put these in the show notes too.
Absolutely. Erin's Law Foundation is on Instagram and on Facebook. Erin Marin is on Instagram and Facebook. The cat named Carrot is one of her handles as well. She has a cat that's famous, infamous, and has over 1 million followers. So she uses that handle to more lightheartedly help bring attention to what she's doing. But she's out there on social media for sure.
That's what we should do. We should all open pet accounts and then do the messaging behind it, because the pet accounts are tremendous. I follow many pet accounts. I think they're amazing.
Oh my
I
God.
even follow this lioness called Sirga in the Kalahari. And it's raised incredible awareness on, our fragile ecosystems and protecting wildlife. And, so yes, I really, truly cannot wait for this to launch. I'm here beside you every step of the way, and we'll be shouting this from the rooftops. So thank you both for your time and integrity through this whole journey. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for spotlighting us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for all you're doing. Appreciate it.
If you loved this episode, follow or subscribe to the Midlife Realignment wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube, and leave a review to help other women find this show.